Got our pot full of soil. It's dry soil that's just been packed, not tamped down, but been just jiggling the pot to help it settle. We've got a spray bottle that is filled with water and red dye, and so we're going to start wetting from the top down. And the idea is that we'll be able to watch the water soak into the soil, and we're going to try and keep all the red dye at the top and then put some yellow dye in the spray bottle and have that soak through to the layers below. Trapping, if the red dye represents fertilizer, that would be trapping it in the upper layers and not washing it through. So what's happened is that the water has coated the surface of the soil particles, and once those particles are covered in moisture, then water can't stick. It binds really tightly to the soil particles, and then it binds to itself, and finally gravity takes over. And so what's happening is the first layer gets coated with water, and the next water on runs through the wet layer and then starts wetting up the layer below that, and then more water comes on and it starts wetting up the layer below that. So the water moves through the wet soil to actually soak up the soil underneath. So now I've got a jug with some yellow dye. It's a yellow jug with yellow dye, and I'm going to start pouring that on the top. And what should happen is that once the water hits the bottom, what comes out will be yellow and not red. And I've done it this way so that the dark color or the light color should run through the dark color, and that way it won't mask what's going on. So we can now see there's some yellow coming on the top, and once that soaks in, it should be running through the layers that are already wet and starting to wet up the layers below. If we turn the pot around, we can see there's no preferential flow anywhere around the pot. It's not running down the edges. The pot's sealed off well. So we're just starting to see the first bit of moisture come out the bottom, and guess what? It's yellow. Not red, that's yellow. So what's happened is that yellow dye that came on second is going right through the red dye and coming out the bottom. Because the red dye is stuck to the soil particles in the upper layers, and so they've coated those particles and there's no more room for that moisture to stick, and so that water runs through to the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. And so what's going on is the last water on the top is running through the wet soil and wetting up the layers below until they're all wet, and then what's coming through is actually yellow. So if that was your fertilizer, then it's gone straight out the bottom. It's yellow on top, and it's running right through the dye, or the red dye, which is stuck to the surface soil, and it's running right out the bottom.